Well, I said that I wouldn't saturate my channel, but here I am saturating it anyway. I want to talk about a road rage incident today. I was out driving in my large van. Some people call it a bus. I had one passenger in the vehicle and me driving. I was downtown on one of the main streets in Chicago, State Street, I believe it was, and I believe the other. I was coming to the intersection of State Street and Harrison, I believe, and uh, there was a red light, two lanes. I was in the left lane, and a vehicle to my right, uh, a silver SUV, came and parked at the white line in front of the red light. And the way he parked, I was not happy with. He his vehicle ended up with its left wheels overlapping the uh, dividing line in the center, basically white broken lines, and that is, he was partially in my lane, in other words, and myself having a large vehicle, um, and having to maneuver through the city the way that I do, and having to avoid accidents as much as I can, because it's part of keeping the job to avoid an accident, even minor accidents. Too many minor accidents, and I can lose my job. I experienced some frustration with the way this man had come and stopped his vehicle. I guess I can't say parked. It was he had it on, and presumably with the with his foot on the brake pedal, and the transmission in drive. Uh, Now to my left, I was coming to the edge as well. Now to my left, there was a left lane that had opened up, so it was a two lane, but there was a third lane to my left that had opened up, and there was minimal space if a car wanted to come and enter into that left lane. If I were to give space to this vehicle in front of me, then I would block part of the left lane. And so I waited behind the vehicle for a small period of time, for a short period of time, when I realized that I wasn't comfortable not being close to the line. And now I realize that my attempts at creating a diagram for you probably have failed. Really, what I should do is draw it or put a graphic on my screen, but because I'm not going to do that, because it takes more work and I don't have a computer to, do that kind of thing quickly, I will not. I won't take the time to do that. The point that I'm making here is that I was frustrated by the behavior of this man. What I ended up doing was I drove forward, and I came to the white line that you're supposed to stop before the red light, and I came very, very close. There was a very small space cushion, let's say. Normally, people are kind of aware of the space around their vehicle. They try not to get too close to vehicles that are around them, and that's a safety measure, and it's a good thing. In this instance, I chose not to stay behind the vehicle, which perhaps have been more of a patient choice. I chose to move forward. And the gentleman in the silver SUV looked at me. I could feel him looking at me. I say that. I say I could feel him, and I don't know if I saw him glance at me first in my peripheral vision, or if I felt it first. Ever since I've begun watching these videos from Jesus, and I learned that we have this quality to us as human beings, which is that of, you could say, a sixth sense, this feeling quality. And it's not just an ability to feel our own feelings, but an ability to feel the feelings of others. I have played with this notion that, any feeling that I have, is this something that I am feeling myself in my own soul? Or is this something that is being transmitted to me from the soul of someone else? And so I can't tell you whether I felt it first or I physically was aware of it through my vision sense, through my peripheral vision. But either way, I sensed that this man was looking at me, and I, not to be outdone, not to be what's the word? Not to be, I guess I want to say, mowed over, not to be railroaded. I decided to meet his gaze. Now, why would I think that someone gazing at me is someone railroading me? Why would I think that, a gaze could be an evil gesture? Why would I think that? Well, this man was uncomfortable. He was uncomfortable with the fact that I had come so close to his vehicle. He probably thought that I could have given more space, and he may not have been aware of the largeness of my vehicle and how I don't have very much space in the lane, and he may not have been aware of the fact that what I really was trying to do was make sure there was enough space in the lane to my left, so any car going into that lane would have enough space to go there. Now, as it happened, no car did, but, we can't anticipate such things. We have to leave, an option open for those who are driving around us. It's only right. But I was going back to what I was saying. Why would I think that the gesture of looking could be a mean, violent, vile, nasty gesture? Someone's looking at someone. Why should that matter? Have you ever felt someone looking at you and thought to yourself, I don't like that this person is looking at me. You may not know what it is, or you may, and you're in denial of what you know. It could be a sexual thing. You don't like to be looked at in a sexual way. It could be a judgment thing. You don't like to be judged. It could be a feeling of hatred. You don't like to be hated. Any such things could be involved in one person looking at another person. Anyway, so this man was looking at me, and I thought, he's probably upset with me. He's probably upset with the fact that I chose to move forward and come very close to his vehicle. and I have this door that opens up to my right, that where I can open it up and I can try to explain something. But as it happened, we were in front of a red light. You know, inevitably, if I were to begin some kind of exchange, that could go for too long, and really, would it ever resolve? Would it resolve in time for us to move forward when the light was to change green? No, it really wouldn't. It wouldn't do that. We only had perhaps 10 precious seconds. Not enough time to explain to this man that I thought that he was too far into my lane, and I have a large vehicle, and I need to make sure there's enough space to my left. And yes, I could have stayed behind him, which would have been perhaps more, congenial or polite. But instead, damn it, I'm so angry at the traffic in Chicago, and everybody seems to be selfish and, too overly aggressive, and, traffic sucks, and I hate my job, and, you know, my passengers are angry and ungrateful and endlessly complaining, and there's not much I can do about it, and few of them see how much I do. How could I explain that to this man in 10 seconds? And would he want to listen? And would he have his own salient points? Perhaps he would have his own salient points to tell me. Perhaps he would say, why don't you just move into that lane? Most vehicles on the road would probably still have space in that lane. I mean, I could get out and look, dear sir. I could look and see how much, if you're right about how much space you were trying to provide the person in the next lane. I could do that. Anyway, it's why would you? Anyway, I don't know what I'm trying to think of points that he would make. He might have something going on in his own life. He might say, people are always encroaching on me. I don't have enough space to myself. And he's a black guy. He was a black guy. Perhaps he would feel that as a white man, this is just more of what white people do, is they're deliberately out to be hateful. I don't know, to be racist, because that's just the way we are. I don't know what he would say. And my presumption may be flawed, and it may not be. But I don't want to go too far into the racial stuff. Suffice it to say that a lot was exchanged in our gaze, and we both held it for what seemed like an eternity, which was in actuality about 2 seconds, and neither of us would back down until finally by way of trying to explain the thousands of things I wanted to tell this man, I moved my arm and waved my hand in a certain gesture, suggesting that perhaps he could have been closer to the right in his lane, and thereby giving me more space. I don't know if he understood the gesture. I don't know how he felt about the gesture. But he nodded his head and he looked away. And a fight did not ensue. A fight was imminent. This gaze that we held was a gaze of anger. At least for me, I was holding back profound rage. And I can only assume that he was holding back rage of a similar degree. Now, whether it was more or less, I can't tell you. Whether I am correct or incorrect in my assessment, I can't tell you. We'd have to search for and find this man, we'd have to interview him properly in order to get the full truth. But I am aware that assumptions are often incorrect, so I can't tell you how truthful I am. But I will say this. We all have a lot of anger inside. And many people are happy to go about their every day and deny this fact. But I would suggest it is at their own peril that they do so. For my part, I'd like to tell you about my anger and rage in a video, such as this one. What occurred from that point forward is the light turned green, and we proceeded on, and I proceeded at a I would say an average speed, and he accelerated a little faster than I would assume most would. I don't know if this was a way to tell me something. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe he was just trying to get away from this weirdo, namely myself. But I will tell you about a thought that transpired inside of me. And this thought was that if this motherfucker, I don't think I said the word motherfucker at the time, but I'm trying to I'm trying to give you an idea of what I felt. It wasn't these, they weren't words. It was an image. It was my imagination at work, and it was a scene that I was depicting in my mind, an if-then scenario. And the if was, if this motherfucker tests me by doing anything out of the ordinary that I don't like, I'm gonna fucking barrel my massive vehicle into his, and he's going to be inordinately displaced, not only out of his fucking lane, but well out of it, onto the curb, onto the street. And if there's cars that stop his progression, and, you know, if he is seriously injured or maybe fucking killed, I could give a shit. I could care less. If he does anything, I repeat, that I don't fucking like heretofore, I'm going to barrel my vehicle into his. That is my best attempt at describing a thought that I had, describing an image that I brought forth, that was brought forth by me into my mind. Now, perhaps it wasn't by me, maybe it was someone else, but I felt it so thoroughly that whether it was a message from another spirit or not, I certainly incorporated it, and I was with it. I was ready, and I was a little afraid of how ready I was to do such a thing. I could tell you, between yourself and myself, dear watcher of this video, that I was very ready to do such a thing. And it may be that he knew that, because sometimes when people size each other up, they do make decisions. If they decide that I'm not ready for this fight, then they will take measures to avoid it. And perhaps that is what he was doing. Perhaps he sensed what I was thinking, and I was not frustrated further by this man. God only knows if I were to ever carry out what I had thought of in my mind. God only knows. But I will tell you that no thought was as salient, is that the right word? No other thought came to my mind in that moment than the rich, sweet revenge that I thought I could procure for myself by affecting this man so royally should he frustrate me in any way. No thought of losing work, no thought of being put in jail, no thought of how I may be condemned by society affected me so much that to prevent that thought from coming to my mind and fully realizing itself, at least in my mind. So I will tell you that I did not barrel into this man, and nothing further happened. He did continue behind me as it happens. He was going in the same direction as myself, but he was a peaceful traveler on the road, and so was I for the most part. And no one would know that I was a road rager ready to explode. I did not make it to the news last night. I did not. No police, no firemen came to the assistance of myself and a proposed injured person. None of my managers came to the scene of an accident to write a report of what happened. No, turns out that we were just peaceful travelers on the road. And I guess I want to say peaceful in quotes. The whole purpose of this video is to describe to you, and also to admit to myself, that anger is a very real thing. Rage is a very real thing. And perhaps you're saying to yourself, well, of course, I know that, Theo. You don't need to tell me that. I know about road rage. I've heard about it. And so, yeah, sometimes I felt it myself. And if you have felt that, or any such thought at any point in time, thoughts of violence, thoughts of wanting to harm others, wanting to strike, wanting to maim, wanting to lash out, but you haven't done it, perhaps it would be a good moment now to reflect on those instances. I'm not saying you have to, but I do want to share my own experience, and I do want to offer my own perspective, which is that anger is very real, and these are the very emotions that cause the violence that occurs the world over. And I will not take responsibility for the violence that occurs everywhere, but ultimately, in the end, I do have to take responsibility for all the rage and anger and violent attitude that I've ever had at any point in my life. And I will say that while I did not carry out any violence in my actions, I did carry out violence in my feelings and my thoughts. And that is a harm. And many people will say that, I'm allowed to think what I think. I'm allowed to feel what I feel. And I don't want the thought police to control what I have in my mind. After all, is not our mind the last refuge of freedom Do I not have my mind anymore, Theo, to go to when I need an escape? And I will say, no, sir, it is not that you don't have your mind. In other words, you will always have your mind. But I will tell you that every action has a consequence, and so do every so does every thought that you have. And furthermore, I will say that it is my belief that every feeling also has a consequence. So perhaps that is something to meditate on. I apologize if I've waxed on so much, and I apologize for any hypocrisy that I have. I haven't dealt very in any mature way with this anger that I have inside of myself. I'm only here willing to admit it, and not much further at this time. And I hope that that is of some value to someone out there.